Perfect. So sometimes technical things don't work out as perfectly planned. So you guys will just actually end up seeing everything because I think when it goes into slide mode, it just cuts off. So 7 huge mistakes, and I was telling you guys to celebrate. So I had a nice little sparkly celebration sign. I told you guys that you had a break open, if you remember, not a breakthrough per se, but you had a break open in understanding the new perspective. We went through what's required, which was the willingness to learn and the willingness to change. And I also mentioned that you really want to have this balanced because if you are more willing to learn but not willing to change, then you'll have a lot of information and not actually be practicing it. And on the other side, if you're willing to change and you actually do change and you don't have the information you need, then you probably have a good likelihood of crashing and burning. And so we went into what are we going to actually learn today? And I said, mistakes actually happen. And so this is actually the part of the presentation. So mistakes actually happen. And this is very normal. And I refer to my portfolio all the time to show you guys, like, I've made mistakes, but overall, you learn from them and you keep going. And why do you want to avoid these mistakes? Well, it's okay to make a mistake for the first time, but it's even crazier to make it over and over and over again. It just makes no sense, right? Like, why do you want to make the same mistake over and over again? And what's even better is when you can learn from other people's mistakes, right? That's one of the reasons why we read books and we see movies. It's because you can actually live the life of someone as if it's your own, but guess what? It's actually not going to be your own. So the mistakes that you come across while living that life in a movie or a book, it actually isn't yours, but you still get to feel the lesson. So that's why it's really important. And so the market also makes mistakes just because we're humans and the market is actually run and owned by humans. And so I try to include this graphic here as many times as I can, because what you want to make sure to do is understand that you're going to go through the runs when you go through investing, right? You're going to go through ups and downs, and it's a very normal thing to have. As you say, like, I bought a stock, you're watching it. Is it going to go up? Is it going to go down? Then it goes down a little bit. Then you're like, oh man, I can't believe it went down. I'm losing money. But then you're thinking, like, maybe I should actually buy it when it's going down because it's almost like a sale. And then it goes down even lower and you're thinking, oh my gosh, why did I do that? Then it goes up a little bit more. And then you're like, oh, this is an amazing decision. But then again, why didn't I buy more? Like, I'm so foolish. And then it goes up again. And then you buy at a higher point. And then this is just the normal psyche. And that's actually how the market works. And we also learned was that it's actually a great time to invest. And one of the reasons why it's a great time to invest is because of VUCA, right? We learned about the volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity of the market. And we learned that in our boot camp that it's an amazingly good time to get into the market because of the volatility and the uncertainty. And the reason for that is because we're in uncharted waters. And when you go into uncharted waters, guess what? It's amazing because you can actually do things that haven't been done before with record time. And a lot of you guys know that with your unique investor advantage, you can actually figure out how to navigate through a VUCA environment, and also BRIC, which was the Brazil, Russia, India, and China and emerging markets. So additional things that you actually need to consider is that we're also still at a low. So even though you make mistakes, it's going to be okay. And even though people have made mistakes in the past, it could be a lot worse. We're still in an all-time low, and people are still slightly fearful. They're not as fearful as they were, say, 6-7 months ago or a year ago, because the market, even today, you guys know, hit, or may not have known, but it hit over 18,000 points. However, it's okay. Just continue to actually make action and take action when others are hesitant, because that's when you have a really good opportunity. So let's hop on in. 7 huge mistakes investors make and how you can avoid them. So I'm going to give it to you pretty soon. Let's see. You guys can't hear. So can some of you guys who can hear me say you can hear me, and some of you guys who say you can't hear me, refresh your page. So can people hear me? Let's see. Okay. Okay. Okay, thanks. Okay. Okay, perfect. So let's keep going because I want to make sure that everyone can. And if you can't, please refresh your page and press play again. And I guess if you can't hear me, you can't hear me say that either. So, uh, yeah. Okay. So number one investing mistake. And so also, you guys are saying that it's slightly blurry. If it's slightly blurry, what you can do is actually in the box up above, and when you press play, there's a tiny little arrow. And in the tiny little arrow in the box on the right hand side will actually take you to like the bigger Google presentation. The reason why it's not in presentation mode is because when I did do it before in presentation mode, you guys weren't seeing the slides as much. So um, I want to definitely help you guys to actually see what it is. So I can zoom in a little bit more if it's helpful, which I hope it is. Nope. Yeah. Okay, let's hop in and keep going. We need to get to these mistakes so you don't make them. So mistake number one, following the crowd. A lot of people fall into the hype of investing and they follow the crowd so much that they actually get lost. And so some of you guys I know may be watching CNBC, some of you guys may be watching CNN all the time. Yeah, and it just goes over the place, you know. The way that our media is fashioned, it's fashioned in a way so that you do not actually it's fashioned in a way so that you don't actually take action, believe it or not. So the way our media is typically, and there are a lot of exceptions, but typically it's like it's you just consume information over and over and over and over and again to the point where it makes you not actually do anything. And this is kind of one of the techniques they have to try to stay relevant. But you'll notice that a lot of times they just repeat the same 90% of things over and over again, and only 10% is actually new news. So what I would say is sometimes actually limiting your diet of market news is actually better because we're not in it for the day to day. We're actually in it for the long term, right? We're in it to be long term investors. We're not like day traders where those insights would actually impact or affect our bottom line. And the other thing you want to do is, in terms of not following the crowd, is that sometimes people give you a lot of information, like you should diversify enough, like diversify, diversify, diversify. And we're going to touch on diversification a little bit later, but then you just don't want to be scared into paralysis, right? And so following the crowd can really do that. And you don't want to follow the crowd all the time because you're not going to move. You're not going to take action. If you find that you're researching something too much and the more conflicting information you have, guess what? You're not going to actually do it, which leads us into our second mistake, which is actually waiting. So a lot of people are looking for the right moment and it's actually pointless. You know, there is an opportunity cost and there is an opportunity loss. It's real. And so a lot of times when we're thinking about, you know, investing or not investing in a particular stock, we think, well, I'm going to see if it goes down. I'm going to see if it goes up. I'm going to put a stop loss, right? I'm going to put so that the second the stock hits, you know, $80, even though right now it's at 90, then I'm going to buy it. However, if you do that, what if it doesn't hit $80 for a very long time? What if it never goes back to 80 or at 80? Then you actually lost out. Because if you bought it at 85 or if you bought it at 95 and at some point it becomes 100, you still would have made money. And so there's a point I want to have to drive this home, which is I know some of you guys may or may not know it, but you know, Forrest Gump from the movie Forrest Gump, Tom Hanks plays in it. There was a scene in the movie where he actually made an investment into Apple. And it was so funny because it was just like, yeah, he's like, yeah, I bought shares in this fruit company and it actually ended up being Apple. And so what was crazy was that let's say we bought $1,000 of Apple stock in July 6, 1994. That's when this movie actually came out in 1994. And it's an amazing movie if none of you have actually caught it. But in 1994, if you just bought $1,000 in Apple and just left it, it'd actually be equivalent to 1,064 stocks. And that's because the stock has actually split quite a few times. And if you guys remember from the boot camp, we went over stock splits and it's almost like a 2-for-1. So even if you bought, you know, say 50 shares of Apple in 1994, today it would actually be like, you know, almost I think, roughly about 200 plus shares, just because of all the stock splits. So anywho, if you were to invest $1,000 in Apple in July 6, 1994, even if it was $1,000 over a year, which is not, ridiculous, right? Honestly, that's less than $100 a month if you were to invest in Apple. And so your 1,064 shares actually would be worth $136,894. And that's if you just didn't do anything with it. You just actually stopped and made it happen. Now, I'm sure some of you guys may have remembered 1994. Some of you guys may remember 2004 or even, 2014. The only reason why I'm showing you this is because the sooner you take action, the sooner you can start reaping the rewards. And so the biggest mistake is waiting. Another big mistake that folks make is that they invest too much or they're investing too little. And so I know this may seem a little funny, but it's actually true. What you want to do is you don't want to take all of your money and sink it into one stock, right? That is a recipe for disaster. Yes, there's a big win. And if any of you guys go to Atlantic City or Las Vegas or a casino, yes, if you put it on one number, you're going to hit, and you're going to hit high for roulette. But guess what? The odds of you hitting high aren't that high, right? They're actually pretty low. So you don't want to put too much into one particular stock. The other mistake that folks make is that they invest too little. So they think like, okay, well, I bought like 5 shares of this and that's it. And I'm not going to buy any more at all ever. I'm just going to let this ride out. And what you'll find is that maybe that stock may actually go up in value 20, 30, 40%. But guess what? You only bought 5 shares. So what is that really doing for you? What is it really doing for you if you invest $100 into a stock rather than $1,000? If it goes up 10%, okay, you made $110. What diddly do? If you actually invested $1,000, then it's $1,100. So you made $100. And this is where we start getting into the compounding effect of actually investing. And some people say like, hey, why should I actually, and some people actually say like, well, does it make sense for me to buy one stock? And I still say, yes, it does. And I will always say, yes, it does, because one stock is better than no stock. That's zero. And so I don't want you to think that just because you're hearing me say don't invest too little, that it means don't invest anything at all. That's not what I'm saying. 1 is better than 0. 5 is better than 1, and 10 is better than 5. So just keep on building the stamina for it, and it will increase. Mistake number 4 is not diversifying. And a lot of times diversification can mean different things to folks. So diversification to some people might mean you should have bonds, you should have stocks, you should have CDs and other assets in your portfolio. But a lot of times people don't even think about diversification in terms of, well, I have stocks, but how am I diverse within my stocks? Am I having stocks just in tech? Am I owning stocks only in healthcare? Am I going to own stocks only in transportation and commodities? Which is crazy, because what if, transportation, the market just hits, God forbid, and people find another way to actually transport goods besides having tractor trailers? That's going to really be hard for you. And if all of your portfolio is in transportation, guess what? You're going to be hit. So I do want to say it is important to diversify. I wouldn't say that you have to diversify equally, though. So you don't have to have an equal proportion of assets, like allocated to healthcare, allocated to tech, allocated to commodities or transportation, because you do have your unique investor advantage, right? And we went over that. And because you have that unique investor advantage, it would definitely make sense for you to actually own more of something that you actually know more about. So that's the biggest mistake that people make too. They do not diversify enough, and they don't invest in what they know. The mistake number 5 is that people just don't understand how to keep their mental cool. Not understanding how to keep your mental cool is a huge mistake. And I did a webinar not too long ago on 7 ways to stay ahead of the curve, and this was definitely one of them. And I put it in here again for a reason, because it's super important. Using mindfulness, meditate, get your mind right, because if you get too emotional, if you don't keep your mental cool, guess what? You're gonna freak out when the market does some freaky stuff. And it does. And the only thing that's gonna keep you sane is knowing that at the end of the day, none of this really means, it doesn't mean everything. Like, as long as you're breathing, you're living, you have people around you that love you, you have a roof over your head and shelter, and you can see the bigger picture and learn the lesson that you need to learn, keep going. I find that people who succeed the most at this are actually people who incorporate mindfulness and meditation into their lifestyle of some way, shape, or form. And that's because 99% of investing is mindset. And of that 99%, 50% is self-honesty. And when you do that, it actually helps you out a lot because you actually get to reflect on what's working and what's not working. So the sixth mistake, and if you guys have any questions at all while we're at this point, I definitely want you to start asking them in the chat box. And what I want you to do is actually put question first in block letters so that it stands out over the other comments. It's really important because this is also a Q&A workshop, so I need to understand what your questions are, and I'm definitely here to answer them. So yeah, so just keep them coming and absorb as much as you can and take many, many notes. So it's really, really big. So yeah. So yeah, some people are asking, so a share, what is a share? A share is a stock. People use them interchangeably. And it's a portion of the company. So thank you for hopping in and answering questions. I really love the community that we always have on our chats and when we help each other out, because a lot of times you actually know the answer to someone else's question, and it's amazing when you can give it to them and actually help them out. So yeah, so if you guys have any questions, just make sure you put question, and I'll make sure to answer it. So yeah. Perfect. So right before we jump in, because we're at number 6 and there's 7, so I think this is a good part to start answering questions. So is there too little shares to have? And the answer is, like I said, no. I personally don't think there's too little. I think the only tragedy in having too little is when you could have made more. So, you know, example would be for the Forrest Gump analogy that I gave you and the stocks he made. Investing $1,000 worth, which I mentioned was maybe less than $100 a month, right? And so maybe you could only invest $50 a month, right? Okay, are you okay with making $150,000? I am. I think you'd be too, considering that the bank isn't going to give you $150,000 for having money just sitting there. And so it just comes up to that. You know, a lot of people, I think, go down on themselves for not investing more or not having enough to invest, and it's perfectly okay. The nice thing about investing is that it meets you where it's at. There isn't an investing minimum. You know, there isn't like you have to buy 10 shares or you have to buy 1,000 shares or 300 shares. It's not like that. You actually decide how much you want to put in. The only thing I would say is that it just sucks when you actually pay $6.99 for a share that costs $25 and you're only buying one share. So you spent most of your money in the fee that it took to actually make the share. But as you guys know, there's Robinhood app and you don't actually have to pay fees. So you can get away scotch-free with one share, which is amazing. Another question that's there is, let's see. Is there a healthy minimum number of stocks to have? Yeah, I mean, usually what you want to go for, I think, which is really great, is that you want to start getting things to a number that's even, like divisible by 10, because it really makes things super easy to understand. So an example would be a lot of stocks, once I see that they're going in the direction that I want to, I just try to feed it until I get at least 100 shares, right? So you want to feed it, so that now I get 100 shares, so it's super easy for me to do the math when I see what's going on. It's a really easy round number. Okay, so I'm going to hop back into the I'm going to hop back into the presentation, and there was one question asking, how do we research the Internet of Things? And so, yeah, I'm not sure what Internet of Things mean, but I will Google it and see what comes up too. You guys are pretty funny. So it depends. And I'm going to answer this one last question, and then I'm going to hop back in. So a lot of times folks say that it's not good to invest just before an election because of the uncertainty. It really depends, right? And so it's not good to invest right before an election, but how much not worse are you thinking about investing, right? So how much not worse are we thinking about investing? The elections I know in the States are happening in November. So are you really not going to be investing up until November because you're not certain what's going to happen? You know, again, we're in it for the long term. And honestly, in the lifespan of how you're going to be an investor, there's going to be like 4 or 5 presidents coming into power along the span of your investing lifetime. So I don't think it's a good idea to necessarily influence your bigger decisions on whether or not there's going to be an election. Definitely the market sways when there is an election because, say, an example, Republicans are in favor of tax breaks. Tax breaks actually, as an investor, mean something to you because there's capital gains tax. And as you start winning as an investor, you actually are going to be a part of that class that gets taxed more and more and more. So then it shifts your perspective a little bit in terms of what a candidate can or cannot do for you. You know, if you played the game fair and you made, money in the stock market, and say if you made $30,000 and eventually it'll get to a point where it's 50,000, I mean, you get taxed 50%, which you never know. Whoever comes into power could do something to that impact. That's going to really piss you off, because you worked hard to make that money and you worked hard to make it grow. So that's definitely, and people vote towards that depending on how much more money they have in the stock market. So to your point, it does impact stocks and how people play, and they get more conservative depending, say, if a Democrat might go in and have huge tax increases, they may not invest as much into the market, which will have a trickle-down effect of shares not moving. Anywho, let's get back into the presentation, and we will still have more Q&A, and I'm going to try to answer as many of your questions as possible before we get off. And if you're still on, keep coming. I have an amazing bonus for you guys, so let's just keep on going. And so, some of your questions are here, and I'm going to be actually answering them in the presentation. If I haven't answered them yet, keep an eye out because it's probably coming. So not understanding the business of business intrinsically, and how do you fit into the big picture? This is huge because a lot of times, if you don't understand how a company makes money, you can't understand how it's going to make money for you. And sometimes people think they understand the business of a business, but they actually don't. And so if you guys remember back in the boot camp, I mentioned 3M. 3M is a company, and 3M is typically known for Scotch tape, right? It's been a Scotch tape company forever, but they actually are also a pharmaceutical company because they actually make bandages and adhesives that actually keep topical treatments on the skin and prevents it from washing away when people take showers. So it's actually also a pharmaceutical company. Another example would be Corning. So Corning, guys, in the past, they used to make a lot of China. It was like the China that people have used since the 60s, and that's what it was. But Corning also makes really good, because the China's so good, they actually make really good laboratory equipment, and they get a lot of their business from selling laboratory equipment. So these are things that I mean in terms of understanding the business of business. Some people just don't understand it, and they invest in things that they think it's making money one way, and it's actually not. A good way to find out about this is actually by going to the company's investor page. Each company that's publicly traded on the stock market has an investor page, and you go to the investor page and you actually see what the breakdown was, like where did the money come from in their earnings, or where did the money go in terms of expenses. There's a wealth of information in your investor report, which is super duper 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 valuable to you. And you also may start noticing that you'll get actual proxies to vote, as an investor. And because this is a really big time in the market, and for companies as a whole, where they have their investor meetings, you'll actually start getting notifications and emails to vote, whether online or in person, or attend the meeting, the shareholders meeting, to see what the company plans to do with your money going forward. Because, like, when you actually are in the stock market and you own a company's stock, you actually own the company, and they are required to, answer to whatever it is you're doing. So the biggest mistake, and number 7, that I also see people make, is that they sell too early or they sell too late. And this is almost like, I know it's a little juxtaposed here in terms of me saying both, but what you want to do is that you don't want to sell too early, in the terms of, like, example, if you sold Apple, if we got in at 1994, imagine if you sold it in 2000, right? I mean, 2000, 6 years later, I mean, imagine if you even sold it in 2014, right? I mean, that's pretty logical, but you wouldn't have made as much money as you would have, say, in 2015. If you sold it 10 years later, example, even in 2004. So you don't want to sell too early. If a stock is like having a really good run, you want to keep up with it, right? You want to keep feeding into it. And of course, you also want to spend some of the money that you could have made from the stock. You want to cash out some of it, because again, you never know what's going to happen in the future. You're betting that it's going to keep on going, but you want to at least give money to it, but you also want to purge every now and then, in terms of just selling some of your stock so you can reap the reward of being so wisdom filled and actually having something amazing. But I would never recommend selling everything in its entirety as it's on an upsell, unless you had something amazing to do, like buy another property, or push your kid through college, or anything like that, which are some reasons why people sell, because they actually are ready to cash out and start reaping the rewards. Now, when I say selling too late, and this is referring back to someone's question about how do I know when to sell. Sometimes a stock is going down and it actually tells you, and it tells you because it's been going down for a long time, and it's, irrespective of what the market is doing, it actually just keeps on going low. So yeah. So what you want to do is actually create a rule for yourself, where if it actually goes below 20% or 30%, you are going to cut it. You're not going to be biased towards it. You're not going to say, oh, but I bought this stock because I heard they were going to make this wonderful technology and it was going to change the entire industry. No, you need to start flexing the muscle of having conditional love. I don't want to say unconditional, but conditional love. And you need to cut your losses, because before you know it, you'll actually have a good chance of losing almost everything. And this happens all the time, where stocks example, Apple in 2015, I told you guys it was 105 or something like that, right? But now it's actually under $100, and the folks who didn't cash out over time, it's lower now. And they didn't lose any money, because you only lose whatever it is you actually sell. That's an actualized loss. It doesn't happen until you actually sell. But, if Apple starts going down to 50 and you bought it at 20, you could have made a lot more money, but you probably should sell it and actually get some profit. Now, again, maybe you actually bought Apple at $150 and it's going down to 75. Guess what? If it's beyond your 20% mark, you still need to sell it. It doesn't matter. And you don't have to sell everything, but you should start selling some things. And what I mean by, selling too late, I also want to say, like, you should periodically shed your losses. Cream always rises to the top, and the companies that are performing versus the companies that aren't performing, they'll show you. Maybe you put the money into a stock, and over some time, what it actually does is it only moves like 0.5%. It only moves 0.5%, or it only moves 2 or 3%. It really doesn't make a huge difference. You bought it at $45 a share, and now it's worth $46 a share. It wasn't huge, whereas another company, you actually bought it at $45 a share, and now it's worth $60 a share. So another strategy that you could do is sell the shares of the company that's only moving sideways is what I call it. It's a sideways stock when it doesn't move up or down in a serious manner over time. And you can sell the sideways stock of, you made $1. Great, you made $1 more than a bank account, but take the money from you selling it and actually reinvest it into the stock that's actually performing really well so that you can have that money grow even faster for you. Now, I'm going to hop back into the chat box and answer some questions before we get into the biggest mistake that I definitely see people doing that I absolutely, it just kind of like makes me sad when I see it. So this is the actual biggest mistake. But before I hop into that, let's answer some questions. So yeah, so you'll find that a lot of companies, in terms of wanting to have learning tools, you'll find that a lot of companies actually have really good software and teams behind them to give you learning tools. So even though I invest sometimes with Robinhood, I actually still use my Capital One Share Builder account to do a lot of my research. And when I want in-depth research, I actually go to Scottrade because yes, their trades cost more money, but I understand why it costs more money. It's because they give an amazing research background. So a lot of the accounts that you actually have, and this is like, again, one of the downfalls I personally think of in terms of Robinhood, is that one of the reasons why you pay for a trade is because in that fee comes all the knowledge they gave you to make the trade and all the labor it took to create that transaction. So Scottrade has a really good, TD Ameritrade also has really amazing research backgrounds. And even if you go through it, you actually might find lists that says like, these are the top traded companies of today. These are the movers and shakers. These are the top movers and shakers in tech. These are the top movers and shakers in, say, transportation. This is the top movers and shakers in telecommunications. I see you guys are getting into a really cool conversation about fiber and cabling and telecom use, which is amazing. One of the companies that's mentioned is Verizon. You also want to think about when you're investing in companies. Yeah, and so sometimes Verizon, their employees just went on strike the other day, right? And that impacted their earnings over the next year just because their employees went on strike. You also want to think about companies in terms of who has a pension. So a lot of companies that have pensions and they're not allowed to like legally say that this is where their money is going, but a lot of companies that have pensions are actually paying people that aren't physically working for them. So if they have had a pension for hundreds of years, for at least 100 years, an average person retires, say 65, they have to replace that person with new labor and then still pay the other person for labor that's not even working. And so for a lot of companies, people are living longer and longer. And so they're paying for the same position 3 times over. They're paying for the same customer service representative. And that eats away into their profits. So even though, like fiber and all these things are coming into play, you want to look at who's coming into the game for that. Google is actually really coming into the game for the fiber optics and cable networks. And no one really, unless you're in a region that they sell it, you actually don't know that Google is actually doing fiber optics and cabling. Okay, so yeah, so what tax benefits are there or mistakes to look out for that you can advise on? So there are tax benefits, and it's kind of funny because when you think about investing, there aren't as many tax benefits as people think. It's actually liabilities in terms of taxes because you're making money and the government taxes us for making money. But this said, if I could have had like a number 8 or 9 or 10, 8 or 9 or 10, it would have been don't overthink taxes because it's a good problem to have, right? If you make money, then you pay taxes. If you don't make money, you're not going to have to pay taxes on that money because it's a loss. And actually, a portion of it actually gets written off. So you can go to your accountant and they'll easily tell you. But an example would be if you reinvest your dividends and if you own a company that does have dividends, if you actually end up reinvesting it, that's actually a better tax. It's like it's a better tax incentive for you. I know that. Also, things that you want to consider is like if you have the Roth IRA or a traditional IRA, IRAs are also really great for tax benefits. But if you're going to do like an individual, then it's not as much. All right, so yeah, so another person has a really good company in terms of like how do you reconcile investing in companies or mutual funds that contain shares in private companies that you don't really support. And so, to that note, I know it sucks. And that's why I also advocate investing in actual stocks over, say, mutual funds, is because when you're in a fund or even an ETF, you know, it just may not be like a robust mutual fund per se. You don't have control over what companies the managers invest in. You actually forfeit your control so that they can invest it for you and they will do it as they see fit. You can do it for socially conscious, you know, corporations. There are funds that go after socially conscious corporations. But in the end of the day, when you look into what corporation does what, you're going to always find a problem. Honestly, like maybe you invest in Apple, and I know I use Apple a lot, but they're just so easy to use in terms of illustrating a lesson. But maybe you use Apple, but guess what? They have sweatshops in China. Most of their employees don't live here, but yet we invest in Apple. So, I mean, and sometimes that's going to rub you the wrong way. So you just kind of have to navigate it within your realm of consciousness to say like, hey, maybe if I actually own the stock and I bring this up at a shareholder meeting, they can actually do something about it. But if you actually have a mutual fund or fund manager, there's no shareholder meeting. You're paying them to do it. Similarly to how we elect people in our government, senators and local officials to be our voice. So yeah, so another person asked a question about when a company gets a new IPO. And the funny thing is, for IPOs, you don't need typically, I mean, you don't have to have $100,000 to invest in an IPO. For IPOs, they have different forms of public offerings. So if someone doesn't know what IPO is, it's an initial public offering, and every company that goes into the stock market has one. And so they typically give first round of shares go to the employees. Then another round of shares go to the actual investors of the company. So people, not you and I investors, the people who are seed investors or a Series A, Series B round investors early in the company, they get their payout first. And then you can actually buy into it on the stock market after it gets actually publicly traded. The funny thing about IPOs, though, is you don't need a minimum once it's finally on the stock market. But I will say on the day of the actual IPO, the first day it hits the market, 8 times out of 10, the price drops the next day. So sometimes you can fall into the hype like Alibaba or even Facebook or a lot of companies. The day it hits the market, the price is actually high. But then the second after 24 hours and the day traders and all those people actually cash out their stocks, like the employees and the investors, it actually drops in price a little bit. And so one last question before I hop back in to the actual presentation is, so clarity, if I buy shares, do I continue to buy more as in feeding account? Or is that the same as just simply buying more of the same stock? So if you want to buy more shares of a company, you literally either you have an automatic investing account that's automatically doing it for you, no matter what the price is, but you are actually just putting in a duplicate trade for the same company. When you look into your portfolio or your gains and losses or your history, you'll actually see line items where it says like on this date you purchased 7 shares, on this date you purchased 10 shares, on this date you purchased 20 shares. And when you are in the overview and it says like you've made or lost this much money, it's actually just taking the average of how many ever times you've traded that stock. So yep. I'm gonna hop back in. So how do you find a stock that pays dividends? Marsha, you're in Mike. I actually have a list of over 200 stocks that pay dividends in Mike. It's in our Facebook group. So that's a great question. But you can also Google how to find stocks with dividends. There are literally so many, but I've compiled them in a handout for Mike people, but literally I found them through tons of research online as well. So you can do the same research yourself and get to them. Yep, Loyal 3 definitely does let you do IPOs. But they also are going to be like more publicly traded IPOs, like more publicly known companies. They don't really do smaller IPOs. So hopping back into the presentation, and I know that I said like this biggest strategy or the biggest mistake, but really none of these are in any particular order per se. They're all pretty big mistakes. These are the most common. Like if you get to the top mistakes that people make, these are the most common. And the only one that I say trumps everything is that people don't give themselves grace. They don't, even though you may make all of these mistakes or one of these mistakes, and that's going to be okay. But what's really going to happen at the end of it all is that you're a human being, and typically humans rise, and we're not perfect. So you have to give yourself grace. You'll notice that if you invest in a stock and it goes down and it's something that you never saw happening, it's okay. You went out on a limb, you tried something new, and you actually made it happen, and odds are, if you remember our 80-20 rules, 8 out of 10 of the stocks you pick aren't going to be the ones that give you the most of your returns. So I almost want you to look at the mistakes you make as practice. Like, how are you going to make as many mistakes as possible so you can make the biggest rewards possible? Because they're actually tied. And so you don't have to make them, but at least learn from them. You can learn from my mistakes. You can learn from other investor mistakes. But some of the mistakes you actually have to learn for yourself. But definitely have grace with yourself. And before we actually wrap up, I'm going to tell you exactly what you can do to make all of this possible. And I also have a wicked prize raffle for you guys. So I know there's definitely about 80% of you, give or take. So you're definitely going to want to stick around because the odds are pretty good. So one of the things that you can do in order to actually keep all of your mistakes and strategies in one place is actually have an operating manual. A lot of people think that this is crazy, but I find the people who succeed the most actually have a plan. And I like to say plans are actually documented so that they can be executed. So you can actually create an operating manual for yourself as an investor. And this is something that I didn't mention in the bootcamp, but it's intentional because that's why we have a workshop, and that's why I give you 7 mistakes investors make, so that I can actually tell you how you can not make these mistakes. Create a manual for yourself, put in a Word document or even an email. Like, this is how consistently I'm going to invest in the market. It's going to at least be 2 days. This is my stop loss. Like, this is the minimum I'm willing to lose for any stock. Write your commitment to not being emotional. Write your commitment to spotting out trends and what your unique advantage is. This is kind of how you can actually keep track of the mistakes. And anytime something actually doesn't end up the way you want to, go back through your list and see which one wasn't up to par. And you'll actually be able to understand why that mistake happened so that you don't make it again. So now that you guys had actually had the break open, now, I think it'd be amazing for you guys to have a breakthrough because you fully understand that investing is something that's gonna, really, really, really pay off for you. It's something that you're doing for the long-term play. It's something that you're not breaking your back doing, right? No one's investing all the money they own into the stock market. I'm never, ever, ever saying that. But this is something that could definitely change your life and the life of the people around you and the life of the people that's gonna come in the future. Right? And so it's super, super duper powerful. And yeah, it's super, super duper powerful. And so what I want to do is formally invite you guys to join the club. And so I don't know if you guys have heard of it, have not heard of it. I'm extremely excited about it all the time. And it's called the Mindful Investors Club. And the Mindful Investors Club is a internet training program. And what we do, it's an actual mastermind. And what it's developed into is not only do I train you in how to become more of an investor and show you exactly what to do, but I not only show you exactly what to do, but I actually teach it to you. And not only do we teach it to you, but we actually show you the how, show you what to do. So we actually show you how to read reports. So we actually show you how to read investor reports. We actually show you exactly what you need to do to understand the business of business. We actually show you what to do to become more mindful. Like I said, 99% of success is the mindset. So we really hone in on those trainings. And we do a lot of other cool stuff that I'm going to tell you in a second. But usually this is a application-based program, but because you've done the boot camp, and honestly, the boot camp is the prerequisite to the course. Like the Mindful Investors Club is open, but everyone who joined just had to redo the boot camp because it really is the foundation of everything. I don't want you guys to think that I didn't teach you everything. You know more than most people, but I want you to excel more than most people as well, which is why I created it. It's a year-long membership, which is really amazing because a lot of times people think they can learn things really quickly, but honestly, it helps to actually be a part of it, right? It actually helps to understand the desire and the need to have someone to ask questions to. It actually helps to savor and understand the knowledge. I know 5 days was a lot, but 5 days is going to make so much more sense in a month as you start seeing what's going on around you guys. So it's a year-long program for a weekend. And really and truly, a lot of it, every month we get a module, and over a week we kind of really tackle and handle out every single thing in depth. So we handle entrepreneurship, we go through savings, we go through foreign markets and day trading. We also go through cycles and ETFs, and we also go through a lot of other things, right? We go through losses, we talk about succession planning. You know, like I said before, it's really important for us to understand that we're not just doing this for us. You know, most people don't have a plan in place, even though they all want to be millionaires, and even though we know we want to have a lot of money saved in the bank for our loved ones. But when you have stocks and stuff, it gets a little technical in terms of planning the succession of your stocks. We also have monthly Q&A, which is super important because, like I said, it's easy to get lessons and interact with the screen and, you know, the handouts, which are amazing, which again, every module has handouts and all that stuff. But it's really important to actually have someone to answer your question and to actually do it live. So a lot of our calls actually happen where they're voice calls. So it's not a chat like this, which is amazing, but a lot of them you can actually talk and ask your questions instead of doing it this way, which is amazing. We go through 12 paths. And so the paths here, and I'll give you guys the site so that you don't have to squint your eyes to read it all close. But we go through things like the wild card effect. We go through things like FOMO and missing out. And these are things that totally, totally happen all the time.
It's 10 o'clock.
Yes, it is. And so if you're wondering what it is to be a part of Mike, it's an amazing opportunity. And this is the first time that I'm launching something like this. And the reason why I'm doing a beta is not only for people to get in early at a wonderful price, but the wonderful reason why I'm offering a beta is so that it's actually going to be a litmus test as to how successful this works. And so people may say, like, really, you think you could start to charge $5,000 for a year-long program? And the answer is yes, I do, because I'm showing you how to make way more than $5,000, right? Even if you learn how to make $10,000, that's a win. Even if you learn how to make, $10,000, $20,000 over time, that's a huge win. And that's what you actually have the power to understand and learn. So one of the wonderful things is that we have an early bird pricing, and it's $595. So that's literally the cost of time, labor, and tech and working on the material. So it's really a steal. And one of the reasons why I created it this way is so that people really have a way to do it if they want to. Of course, we have a VIP option where you get actually live time with me. You get, brainstorming calls. You actually get access to my live workshop in New York City, and you get bonus workshops like the goal setting workshop. And if you find that you're actually an early adopter, then you can actually get a free upgrade to that VIP. And I did this the last time, and they flew like hotcakes on the last boot camp. And I only release them when I do it to the boot camp in terms of giving folks a free upgrade because it's such a great value. But I'm just in awe at how eager you guys were to learn and how eager you were to actually make a difference in your life and start investing. So we created the early adopter program for folks like that who are just eager to jump in and make things happen. And so we've got 15 slots available. If you want to be a part of it, you can just go on the website and just click the program and you'll get more details. But before you leave and before I give you your actual like raffle and stuff, I got to tell you about the bonuses, because the bonuses is really one of the huge benefits to joining Mike. And you guys know this, like I give bonuses. I think the other day I posted like the 250 dividend stocks was a bonus that they didn't even know they were getting, but I did. Even you guys in the boot camp got the term sheet. So I really am a giver at heart. And so the bonus number one is saving your way to investing. So I'm huge into, investing my hard-earned money into the stock market because I want to leverage it to make more money for me. However, there's nothing better than investing money that just didn't even exist before, right? Because you either saved it or found ways to create money out of the air. And so the number one, the first bonus is saving your way to investing. And I think this is huge because it's a way to really amp up your risk level and your risk tolerance. Because if you're spending money that you never had anyway, it really helps you to really take on the risk of investing in those stocks that maybe it's going to work, maybe it's not. But if it doesn't work, guess what? There's no loss, no gain, right? And so to me, it's really important to invest with money that came out of nowhere so you can do more risky things and have more reward. The second bonus is an abundance workshop. And so I touched on it in the boot camp, but really it's funny. People sometimes worry about money, and I'm of the belief that we will always, 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 always have enough, right? Because we are enough, we will always have enough. And we are from a creator that created everything perfectly in the sense of being overly abundant. So though this sounds great in practice, in theory, sometimes it doesn't translate to our actual lives. And for me, I just don't have a problem with abundance, like, and not abundance just monetarily. Abundance is like your quality of life. Abundance is something that you want to pass on to your kids. Abundance is, it literally is a skill. And I love teaching it to folks because it really just changes your life. And the third bonus is actually the Unique Investor workshop, and it's the Unique Investor Advantage Deep Dive. And this is where we actually go in, and I run this on smaller groups because it's not made for a huge group, but I run this in smaller groups, and it would really open up your mind to seeing the kind of investor you are and the kind of leader you are. And so it completely dismantles everything you think about who you are, and we build it back together again. And literally the feedback that I've gotten from this workshop is that it could be life-changing if you let it. And so I definitely want to invite you to that. And so before we hop back into questions, which I definitely want to answer all the questions you guys have, I want to invite you to go on over to Mike and join the club. I know that I mentioned that one of the best things about being an investor is actually having teachers and having people to go through the journey with you. And I didn't mention it just now, but we also have, like, a lot of the people that I learned from are coming in as guest experts to teach their strategies on investing in addition to my own. So that's one of the huge perks that you guys have. You're going to be surrounded with a community of people that are not just accepting life, but they're actually out to change it and to change their life. And you're going to really thrive because birds of a feather flock together. So before we wrap up and I give it the raffle, I'm definitely going to answer questions that you guys have. So recent question was, do I advise people over 55 years to invest? And the answer is yes, I do. And actually, some of our Mike members are over 55, and that's completely fine. And the reason why I think it's completely fine is because it's never too late. And one of the reasons why you're investing, it's not for you, right? Yes, it's for you, but it's for your kids and for your kids' kids as well, isn't it? And I always, when I think about the age of investing, I think about my aunt, and I mentioned her maybe once before, but I remember when I was really excited about investing and I started getting into it a couple years ago, you couldn't shut me up about it. I was like, holy crap, you can make money with this thing and nobody's like talking about it. I'm going to talk about it and I'm going to get everybody in it because like who needs to work every single day of their life, you know, slaving and sweating. And so my aunt at the time, she was actually maybe like 73, 74, or maybe even 75. I know it was a while ago when this all started happening, and now she's approaching 80. But she started investing, and she was like, you know, I want to give you money. Can you invest for me? And I see the TV and I'm like looking at Apple and I see people like this Facebook, this Book of Face thing. She couldn't even say Facebook at the time. It was like this Book of Face. And she's like, can you just kind of invest for me? It's not a lot, but I'm excited and I want to see what happens. And I invested it for her. And you know what? One day her stove broke. And she's like any other old elderly person living off of a pension or retirement or Social Security. When you have sudden things that happen, you need money now. You need money now. And so she was like, my stove broke, but there's this really nice one that I want to get. Can you cash out my stocks? Yes, it was an opportune, you know, yes, we cashed out stocks for a stove, but guess what? She was able to actually get a stove that she wanted, and it didn't break her bank account because she actually invested some stocks before, and she just invested the proceeds in an oven. So to your question, it's never too late. And I think that's just an amazing reason. So yeah, why do you guys want to invest? You know, I'm interested to see you guys and to hear what you guys have to say. You know, for me, I know that it's legacy and it's to help other people, but everyone has their own reasons. Why do you guys want to invest? And as I answer more questions, I'd really love to hear from you guys because this is something that isn't common. You know, the average person doesn't wake up and say, I'm going to invest in the stock market today. Right? So why do you want to invest? And why, I mean, you guys, you went through a boot camp and some of you still aren't finished, which is totally fine. But you're still going. So I really want to know, why are you actually investing? So yeah, so let's hop on into some of the questions. Ford does actually do dividends as well, for those of you who said that they purchased some Ford. And it's really honestly like amazing that you guys are investing. You know, I can't stress how proud I am when I see those text messages or those Facebook posts or those emails of people saying like, hey, I invested and I never thought I was going to before, but I did it. And it was because you taught me. And I really think that's why people are like, why do you always say invite my friends? And why do you always tell me to bring others along? And the reason is because like we're actually changing things. Every time we become an investor, there are other people around us who never thought that it was possible. But seeing us actually invest and stand up for our financial freedom is really empowering to the other people around you. And you may not understand the impact that you have, but do know truly and deeply that it's impactful. And an example would be, if I didn't start teaching investing, guess what? Hundreds of people wouldn't be investing right now. And if you didn't start investing, 100 more aren't going to invest. So I'm super proud of you guys. And so, yeah, let's hop on in. And yeah, I'm seeing like a lot of legacy wealth. And just because you want to be lazy one day, yes, that is what I'm talking about. I'm not about working all the time, you know, hard earned working, and then God forbid one day find out that I can't do everything, you know? So that's definitely it. Paying off a huge 25-year-old student loan. Yup, that'll do it. Because a lot of times when you invest over a long period of time and you do it with in the right way, you'll actually see that, dude, you're making more than the interest for your student loans. So it works. It actually works. Travel around the world. Yes, I love that too. And one of the upcoming bonuses that we have for Mike, I haven't mentioned it or announced it, but it's actually a travel hacking guide, because you can travel the world and have it not pinch too hard into your pockets. But when you start working with different economies and different currencies, things just get really fun. And I love meeting Americans abroad because most of them invest. Believe it or not, when you meet a traveler, odds are they have a portfolio. So yeah, live above the time clock. Awesome. So yeah, I told my friends at a spa getaway about you. They're excited. That's awesome. Will there be another boot camp? There will be another boot camp, but it won't be until the end of summer, if that. I try to keep these not so frequent. A, because it's really special. B, because it actually takes a lot of time and energy. And it's funny because people are like, what do you mean it takes time and energy? It's only 5 days. And it's like, no, there's a lot that goes into 5 days actually. And I literally shut down a lot of what I do to focus on you guys for those 5 days. So though I would love to do it every single day, I can't do it to this magnitude all the time. But I do plan on having it again, and you guys will definitely know when I have it again. And you'll have access to the information for 3 weeks after today, because I know that sometimes it takes time to catch up to lessons. And then you'll also be able to join the boot camp again at a discounted rate, like whenever it happens again in the future. So yeah, so back into the presentation. If you guys don't have any other questions, and if you have questions that I may have skipped over, please email them to me. You guys all have my email, which is wonderful, or post them into the Facebook group, which is even better, because if you're thinking it, that means 10 other people are probably thinking it that just haven't said it, which is how questions work. And yeah, so before we quickly wrap up, and it's 10:15, which is like, I'm so excited because I am pretty much the talkative beaver that just keeps going. I'm going to do the raffle. So this is what you guys get. Oh, congratulations. Yes, Felicia, you did join Mike, and I'm so happy that you're part of it. And you guys, like, even I can tell you guys what the modules have been so far for those of you who are wondering what it's like to join Mike. As soon as you join, you go through a series of pre-course emails. And so these are things just to kind of whet your palate to investing and to remind you of the really important things. And then you actually have immediate access to 2 or 3 modules that are already there. One is the Business of Business, which is a really hands-on module. You also get to understand the power of choice and a lot of the mindset that goes behind it. So tomorrow actually gets released another module, which I didn't tell Mike members, but they'll see it tomorrow. And it's going to be on ETFs and electronically traded funds for those of you guys. And though I know in the boot camp, I was like, are you an ETF camp or a stock camp? One of the secrets behind it is that you're a both camp. Even though you may be more eager about one over the other, but it's through ETFs that you can actually invest in foreign stocks. It's through ETFs that you can actually invest more so in industries. And I give a ton of information on how to find the perfect ETF, how to use that as your backup plan, because though it doesn't accumulate as fast as a really good stock, it accumulates. You know, something is better than nothing, and that's kind of the aspect that we come from with it. So that's kind of there. And so, yeah, I think these are just amazing things. And if you guys want to be a part of Mike, there's, like I said before, a limited space offer. 15 of you guys get the free upgrade. If you can't make it, like say some people get paid, I know, on the 1st or the 15th or something like that, you can email me. I'm always here. And I'm really flexible because I really want you guys to win. Like, everyone gets to go. And that's my goal. Everyone gets to go. And that's like my anthem, literally and truly. And if you really want to go, you get to go. Just email me and let me know. And so our raffle for today, which was pretty amazing and awesome. Yeah, ETF is awesome. So this is how I do my raffles, if you guys know. It's not super high tech. I take my finger and I wiggle it through the chat box function here with everyone's name. And so if you're a guest and you actually put in guest 924, just listen out for your name or whatever that name is. But I squiggle my hand a couple times and then I close my eyes and I pick a name. And that's just the least complicated way that it's going to work out right now. And so what our raffle prize is, and the last time I actually gave away a spa date. And the reason why I did was because a lot of times we just so stressed for no reason every single day, and we can't think straight. So sometimes you just need to get away and take a break. And that was it. For this raffle, I actually have 2 raffles. So that was like the secret surprise for this one. I actually have 2 raffles this time, not even just one, which is really amazing. So the first raffle is actually going to be a free 60-minute strategy session with myself. If you guys know anything about my strategy sessions, they go deep. Even just the 15-minute calls that I've been having with Mike members just to say hello and and say like, hey, we're not just a voice through a screen, but we're actually people, has been super insightful. But when you get into the 60-minute, you really can just download my brain for anything you want, whether it's entrepreneurship, whether it's saving, whether it's traveling, investing, retire, it doesn't matter. You can ask me whatever you want. It's recorded and you will have it forever. So it's a beautiful thing to have. And so that's the number one raffle, is a session with me. And the reason why I chose that was because people actually wanted that as their freebie, which I thought was pretty spanking amazing. And the last thing that I'm going to raffle, the last and what I think is pretty amazing, is actually a bouquet of flowers. And you guys might be thinking like, what, are you serious, flowers? But I'm super passionate about flowers. I love flowers, and I think they do something amazing to a soul once they receive them. And if you're a guy, you can still get flowers, you can own it, or you can give it to the special lady friend in your life. But one of the reasons why, and there's a specific flower that I give you, that I'll be sending to you and delivering to you. But one of the reasons why I give it is because it tells a story. And it's a flower that has really inspired me over so many hurdles that I've been through in life, that it just, honestly, once you hear the story of the flower, once you get it, you'll never look at flowers the same again. So with this said, without further ado, I will do the raffle. So yeah. So, and so the brainstorming session is going to Lasagna. So Lasagna, I hope you're there. Are you there? Lasagna, you are getting a 60-minute conversation. So congratulations. I love that you won this. Y'all congratulate Lasagna. Lasagna, if you're there, please email me so you can get your free 60-minute brainstorm. So yeah, congratulations. I'm really excited for you. And that is a pretty bad looking photo you got there, Lasagna. And I actually think you're already a part of Mike though, Lasagna, aren't you? I feel like maybe you're part of Mike. So if you are, which I feel like you are, because your name looks super duper familiar, I'm still giving you an additional 60-minute, and you can gift that to someone if you don't want it for yourself. So you did have a VIP free upgrade from the last time. And so you already have 2 60-minute conversations, and you can have 3. That is well within your right. It's a year-long course, so you can have it, but you can gift it to someone else if you want to as well. So super congratulations. I'm very proud of you. So now we get the second raffle, and it is going to be the flowers, which I love. I mean, trust me, the 60-minute brainstorm is amazing, but I love the raffle. And so, and right before you guys leave, I just saw a question about payment plans, and there's even more questions, so I'm going to answer that, but I want to give away these flowers because I love flowers. The flowers will be going to guest number 2764. So I don't know who guest number 2764 is. Can you please write into the chat box who you are and what your name is so we can congratulate you, and you can email me. So yeah, guest 2764. Who are you? I hope so. I think so. Well, they're online. So if I called your name, that means you're actually online in the chat box. If you actually left the webinar, then your name would go bye-bye and you wouldn't be in the pot. So who is guest number 2764? This is hilarious. I've never had a guest win. So this is exciting. And hey, okay, awesome. Guest 2764, Jerome Scott. I was just about to give away your raffle if you didn't answer within like a couple minutes. So congratulations, Jerome. Congratulations. Well, you get a wonderful, wonderful bouquet of flowers. And I think that's special that you got it. So I hope you appreciate it. And I'm not sure if you've ever gotten flowers before as a man, but it is an amazing thing. So super congratulations. Can you please email me, Jerome, and I would love to get your mailing address, and I'll send those to you as well as the story. I would love to share the story with you guys about the flowers, and everyone can know it, but Jerome has to first take a picture of them when he gets them, and then we'll post it, and I'll tell you the story about it. I don't want to ruin the surprise for him. So yeah, so we had a couple of questions. So does Mike offer payment plans? And the answer is yes, we do. I'm gonna scroll back up just to show you guys. Oh, not there. In the slides, but I do offer payment plans because it's really important, like I said before, to meet people where they're at and to give you guys possibilities. So I'm gonna open up a new window. I think you can still see my screen. And it's Mindful Investors Club /join us. You're gonna go right here on it. And if you look, it's actually a really long sales page, but it has a lot of information because people have a lot of questions. And so as you scroll, as you notice, Mike has a completely different branding with it, and that's intentional because it's not the 5-day boot camp, it is the Mindful Investors Club. And as you scroll down, you'll see that I actually have different payment options where you can do a one-time payment. So the actual investment is $595. If you are one of the 15, you get a free upgrade. So you pretty much are saving like $500 off the back for knowing what you want and going for it, which is why it's called an early adopter program. And you can either pay that with one time of $550, which is great because you actually save 10%, almost 10%, because like I said before, it's $595. So if you do one time at $550, you save a good chunk of money. And if you can't do the one time, you can also do 2 installments, and that's paid over 2 months. So that's $295. Yeah. And so that's $295. And I'm hoping that you guys are still seeing my screen, but yeah, so that's $295. You guys will find that if you pick this one up here, it will take you to a regular credit card form because some people want to pay through regular credit card. And if you scroll down, it gives you other opportunities, but it will also take it through PayPal. So I know a lot of people want to do PayPal, but yeah, I know a lot of people may want to do PayPal. Some people don't like to do PayPal. So I just want to definitely make it feasible for everyone to do whatever it is that they want to do. And so, yeah, let's see. I'm not sure if you guys can actually see my screen or not, but I think you see like the screen presentation still, which is amazing. And you guys can go to mindfulinvestorsclub.com and you will actually be able to sign up and do it there. And yeah, so I'm gonna be sticking around for questions and answers. You guys get to see me. I'm a real person. I know that I'm dweebing it out with my glasses right now, but it's okay. It's okay. And so, yeah, so that's pretty much it. I'm super proud of you guys again for completing the boot camp. If you actually want to be a part of Mike, I would love for you guys to be there. And you know, honestly, it's just amazing to have you guys. And so, yeah, don't mind me. I will be online for a very long time after this, answering any questions you guys, of course, any questions you guys have about Mike. I'm definitely here for you. And yeah, again, congratulations. Stay in the group. The group doesn't go anywhere for the Facebook group that you guys have. I do keep it open as a resource for you to actually go back through whatever lessons or anything that you wanted to, or the conversations. I know that you actually had a lot of good content in the bootcamp Facebook group, so that isn't going anywhere. This is the homepage for Mike, so if you guys want to see it, this is what it looks like. And if you scroll down, like I said before, you'll see the paths, you'll see everything that I mentioned before, and it'll all be there. So I'm going to scroll back up now and see, and you guys are very welcome. And I'm very happy to continue the journey with all of you guys as your teacher. So that's pretty much it. Thanks for, yeah, rocking off. You're right. I am natural, and it's actually like a fro right now. But I'm happy that you guys got to see me because I'm a real person. And sometimes when people see me or even hear my voice, they think that I'm not a real person, but I am. And I am completely authentic, transparent, and human, and am very much passionate about creating ripples of wealth for folks. So I can't wait. If you get the upgrade, you get access to the VIP event in New York City so we can actually meet in person, and that would be amazing. So yeah, I'm so happy for you guys. You guys have my email. I'm gonna sign off in terms of the webinar, but I will then hop onto the chat box with you guys and completely just chat and go over everything. Jerome, email me, please, so that I can get your information as well as the other bootcamp winner. Talk to you guys soon, and bye.